Welcome to Awake to Oneness Radio. I am Caroline Chang, your host. The mission of Awake to Oneness Radio is to inspire the world to awaken to the universal truth of oneness. Science is now teaching us that all life is interconnected and interdependent. In essence, everything is one. Now, ancient wisdom and spirituality has been teaching the truth of oneness for eons, and science is now just catching up. But it's not new science. This science of quantum physics is over 100 years old. Quantum physics talks about quantum entanglement, where everything is interconnected and interdependent, and also the unified field theory. These things have been around over 100 years. So this is not new science. This is science we should know by now. And also science is at the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to learn. But like I said, spirituality and ancient wisdom has been teaching this universal truth of oneness for eons. So when mankind awakens to the universal truth of oneness, there will be peace on earth. Today's show topic is Divine Guidance with Norma Edwards. Welcome, Norma, to Awake to Oneness Radio. We have Norma on the phone with us.
Well, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction and that welcome. It is a joy and a privilege.
Thank you.
To be with you today, this brand new year of 2020, and I'd like to say to your listeners, a happy, blessed, and peaceful new year.
Yes, thank you so much. You're right. We are in 2020, and to me, 2020 is the year of clear vision, and I think a lot spiritually is going to happen. We're going to see a lot spiritually happening in the world as a whole. The humanity consciousness shift. The humanity is slowly but surely awakening to who we truly are as spiritual beings. So thank you. I'd like to share with our listeners how Norma and I met. We met, she's laughing because it should be on videotape, but we met at the IANDS Conference this past September in the Philadelphia area, and Norma was a speaker there, and I was invited to be press. So the funny thing is, I was wearing my badge that said press on it in big letters, but Norma was looking at my face, at my beautiful eyes. She wasn't looking at my badge. And so we started talking in the lobby, and she was saying, I don't really like to talk to the press. And then so when she said that, she wasn't looking at my badge at all. So what I did is slowly bring my badge up to my face so she could and when she saw it, she just got so tickled, she ran away and hid in a corner. It was so funny. I know you had to be there. Basically, it's one of those moments you had to be there. But that is how Norma and I met, and I did attend her talk, and she gave an amazing talk at the IANDS Conference in 2019. She has a beautiful, wonderful near-death experience to share. So I'd like, Norma, please share with our listeners your journey and your near-death experience with our listeners.
Well, thank you for the opportunity and welcome. Yes. As my host says, I am Norma. I have to tell you first of all that I had no idea what those three little words really meant. And it took 2 decades of my life to determine the meaning of the three little words, I am Norma. And I want to say to each and every one of you listening today, if you have not yet discovered the meaning of I am and your first name, it's time to get busy and make that discovery. Now, I want to share with you that 50 years ago. Yeah, that sounds like a long time. December the 19th, 50 years ago, I woke up like every other regular day, and I was not feeling quite well. I hadn't been feeling well for a couple of weeks, and my doctor told me that I just had a strange bout of flu.
Mhm.
But as the day progressed, I did go into work. The day progressed, and I began to feel these pains, pains in my stomach. And at about 4 o'clock, I looked up at the clock because I still had 1 more hour to go. The pain had intensified, and it came on, and it kind of faded out. And then at 10:15, it came back. I looked at the clock, and I went, "Wait a minute, this is labor pains." Because see, I had already had 2 children before,
Okay.
and the pain intensified now, and I asked to leave early. Stepped into the elevator. Now, this was in London, England. That is where I lived at the time. And in those days, in the 60s, elevators stopped with a jerk. The elevator stopped with a jerk, and it just put me into excruciating pain. I collapsed in the elevator. But the interesting thing was that the only other person in the elevator was a Hindu woman. I knew she was Hindu because she had on a sari, and she had that red dot at the top of her forehead. And she and I were the only people in the elevator. So she obviously ran out of the elevator, got people to help her, got me out to the curb because the hospital was like 2 blocks away.
Mhm.
Hailed a cab and got me into the cab. We got to the hospital. She and the cab driver kind of held me up and got me into the emergency room. And he, unfortunately, drove away with my handbag. He did not realize the handbag was still in the cab, which meant that I passed out. I lost consciousness. And the doctors and staff is saying to this poor young woman, "What's her name?" "I don't know." "Where does she? Do you have a telephone number for her?" "No, I don't." "Do you know where she works?" "I know nothing about her except the fact that she says I am normal."
Mm.
And the journey began. So she stayed. My handbag is in with all my information is in this cab, and the cab driver doesn't realize it's in his cab until the next morning when he enters his cab and sees it there. So she waited, and they had to call the police, and the police had to begin to do some sleuthing to be able to find my husband, because they had no name, they had no telephone number, no address. And God bless her soul, she sat in that waiting room from about 5 o'clock in the afternoon until the whole emergency was over.
Wow.
But on my way into surgery, I regained consciously for a few minutes. And the doctor said to me, they're moving me on a trolley, and he's running along the trolley, and he says, "We need to do emergency surgery. You've got a dead baby inside of you." The baby had died inside of me. And nobody, including my doctor, didn't even recognize. See, my doctor had said I couldn't have any more children, so he never thought of doing a pregnancy test.
Right.
And this baby had been dead for quite a while inside of me and had begun to poison me.
Oh.
So they rushed me into surgery, and the other interesting thing about this story is I've got a Hindu woman sitting praying in the lobby, and one of the nurses on her way out kind of heard the commotion, and she fell in step with the trolley, and somewhere from a distance I could hear her going, "Hail Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now, and in the hour of our death." I can hear that faintly through my unconsciousness,
Right.
which meant that I had a Hindu and a Catholic praying for me
At the same time.
at the same time.
Yes.
Well, they rushed me into surgery, and the memory of excruciating pain, I could still feel this pain. And then suddenly I experienced this absolute calm, peacefulness, something like the way I live now. And I'm amazed because the pain has gone, this excruciating pain has gone, And I'm looking around me, and I realize I'm on the ceiling. Now, you talk about being baffled. There has to be a stronger word in the English language for it than baffled. Because I'm looking down on myself on an operating table, surrounded by a team of doctors and nurses. And I am completely confused. How can I be in two places at the same time? I'm asking myself. And then I watched the nurses begin to hand the doctor the instruments with which they will perform the operation, and I'm horrified. So at this point now I'm thinking, I got to get down there and let this doctor know I'm okay. I'm no longer in pain. He doesn't have to do this operation. But I have to remind you, as I tell this story, pay attention to some of the key points. One of the key points here was the power of thought. As soon as you think it, there it is. How do I get off the ceiling to get to this doctor? And instantly I'm in front of him. I'm right in his face and I'm going, hello, hello, this is me. You do not need to do this operation. And of course, he's totally oblivious of me. And so of course I'm thinking, okay, he's a man. So maybe this is the reason why he's not paying attention. And I turn my attention now to the nurses. And I'm running behind these nurses one at a time as they go off to get, pick up the instruments and what have you. And I'm going, hello, this is me. You need to listen to me. And then it occurred to me that nobody can see me, nor can anybody hear me. And then the next thing I know, all hell broke loose, code blue. And I look at the instrument and I have flatlined. And now I'm really dumbfounded. And I'm thinking, there's something wrong with this room. The people in the room don't seem to be able to see me. Now the instruments are malfunctioning. Because you see, to me, you could never explain to me in that moment that I had just died.
Okay.
So I'm thinking the instruments are malfunctioning. What are they going to do next? And with that thought, I'm like, I'm getting out of here before somehow they take my life by mistake. And again, the power of thought. No sooner I said that, I am back up on the ceiling and I am moving at the speed of lightning. And I enter a very dark tunnel. And when I say dark, you could feel the darkness in your soul. That's how dark it was. And I'm moving through this tunnel very, very quickly, and suddenly a spark of light appears. And it begins to radiate, and with each circle, it gets stronger. So naturally, if you're in an extremely dark area and light presents itself, you get totally focused on the light.
Yes.
And I'm focusing on this light that's escalating in front of me and getting bigger. And then we come around a corner, and ahead of me, oh my God, light like you cannot imagine. There are no words for me to describe it. There is this shaft of absolutely brilliant white light ahead of me at the end of this tunnel. And as I get closer to the tunnel, the thought in my head, here is not a critical thing to remember. I am dead according to human experience, but I'm processing better than when I was alive.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, if I ever survive this experience, the velocity of light I'm about to enter would burn the coronas out of my eyes. And in that moment, I merge with light. And there are no words, not in the English language or any other language. Those of you out there fearing death, there are no words anywhere in the English language to describe the peace, the joy, the beauty, the glory as I entered into the light. I entered into the light and found myself merged with light. I also had a very distinct feeling that I had become love. And again, I'm in the brilliance of this light. And I'm thinking my thoughts, well, how do people move about in this environment? No sooner I said that, I began to move. Only this time I'm aware that I'm moving, but my feet are not touching the ground. And I come to it looked like a when you look at movies and you see the Colosseum the Romans built, it looks like a Roman Colosseum with huge, huge pillars. And as I got there, I stopped. And I have to say it was a humongous screen. Huge television screen, because in the 60s you can imagine what the size of television screen looked like. I've never seen a television screen that big. And the television screen it lit up, and then it began to scroll very slowly. And I'm standing there in wonderment, really drafted by this huge screen. And it has 3 columns on it. The column on the left is my life as I had planned the journey. The column in the middle, and of course in the left, there are all the objectives for the experiences I was about to have. The column in the middle represented those experiences and those moments and all the activity that was intended for me to work through these so that I can accomplish what's on the left. Does that make sense, Karen?
Yes.
And then there was a column on the right, the right-hand side. It looked as though someone had made a stamp, and on each level it said, objective not accomplished. Objective not accomplished. So I'm looking at all these objective not accomplished now, and I go back to the left-hand side, and I'm reading, it is very detailed. For example, the very first thing there was the amount of moments I was supposed to spend in the womb, delivery, and how much time that should take. I mean, it was very, very detailed. And now my head is moving from the left-hand column to the center column, because I'm seeing the opportunities that came my way to be able to accomplish what was on the left. But unfortunately, I was kind of like not following the pattern. I was totally unaware that there was such a thing as a pattern. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
And that resulted in the stamp. The only place where the stamp said objective accomplished was birth.
You were born.
I did follow the pattern, and I got myself born. But then everything else, I watched resistance. And I think if it's one thing that I'm writing a book. As a matter of fact, I just finished writing it.
Yes.
And the book is called Awakening.
Oh.
And if it's one thing I want to impress upon people is we got to stop the way we pray. Prayer is a powerful thing. But what I noticed in my record is, and I asked the question, who taught me how to pray? Because when I looked at the prayers that I had sent up, it was there in the record. None of it was in line with what I came to do.
Oh, okay.
And if anything, it became an obstruction, because prayer really does get answered. We say these prayers and we repeat them, and they get answered because we have free will. But in my case, I don't know about anybody else's, I had been praying and asking for things that were totally contrary to what my purpose here on earth was. And hence the objective not accomplished. Objective not accomplished, Many of the things that I prayed and asked for had been granted. But they had now become in the way. Can you see that?
Yes, I do.
I'm stumbling over these stumbling blocks that I placed there myself in my ignorance or lack of knowledge. There are a couple of things that stood out at the record for me. First, of course, was this thing about prayer. I watched this image of me on my knees, head bowed, in this mode, if you like, this stance of begging God for something. And then after that, I saw the stance it should be, because God don't want us to be beggars. He wants us to become co-creators with him.
Yes.
And so the next stance I saw next to this stance of me like a beggar was me standing with my arms outstretched palms fully open, my eyes turned heavenwards towards the light, so the light can come in. The second thing that struck me about at the record was that, and I now teach that, timing is everything.
Okay.
But the timing belongs to Almighty God, not us. And if we could but learn to first believe that the timing is everything and that it's God's timing,
Right.
then we would really find ourselves working with the Creator to manifest what needs to manifest, rather than carrying out our own program and getting frustrated because our own program is not manifesting itself in the timeline that we think. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, yes. I think of it, I just want to interject. I think of it as this too. I think the part of us that gets in the way is our humanness, is our human mind with our limited human perception. But we are, like when I speak of oneness, I speak of us being one with each other, but also one with God. So
that's right. We are spirits.
Yes.
Trapped in a physical body.
You're right.
But while we're here, we pay only attention to the physical body and the values of the world.
Exactly.
And that's what's holding us.
Exactly. That's what gets in our way. But when we focus on our connection to God, our higher self, source, universe, whatever terminology a person has. I use the term higher self, and I know my higher self is not separate from me. I go in, I quiet my mind, which is all that human programming. I quiet that. I tell it to shut up. And then I listen, I go take deep breaths and listen to my heart. And I know that my heart is connected to my higher self, which will guide me in the right direction.
And you are right. Except I would just drop a hint here. Take the word higher self out and place the word spirit there. That's who we are. The spirit. And spirit that's the other thing I saw on the record. We have no beginning and we have no end. We are truly eternal.
Yes. This is true. Yes.
And you know, if I had the power, I would take the word death completely out of the English language.
Oh, definitely. I say it all the time. There is no such thing as death. It's nothing but
it's a transition from one place to another. And then we get some rest. That's what I saw in the record. We get some rest, get a little bit of rest from paying bills and all the havoc of life here on earth. And then somebody rouses us up to I also saw in the record when I was told that I had to return, and I was not a happy camper at all. Not at all.
I hear that
and then
a
we
lot.
get some rest. Yeah,
yes.
we get some rest, and then we start planning the next lifetime, because each lifetime has got its own curriculum, if you like.
Yes.
Yeah, and its purpose. And then we come and we get graded. Yes. We either do very well, or we come and we get so infatuated with the world and its standards and its what have you, that we sometimes play the whole lifetime out using the world's standards. And then when we get back there, they got to rough us up a little bit and send us back. But I also saw another thing that I saw at the record that has completely changed my life when I came back, when I put it into practice. We cannot get paid twice. We cannot get blessed twice for the same thing.
Okay.
And what I saw there is, for example, many of us, most people on the planet, there's very few people on the planet who are not givers. Most of us, we're givers, right?
Yes.
And we will give to charity, we will give of our time, and so on and so forth. But if you get paid in human currency for it, that's it. You can't turn around and expect a blessing too. So what I saw the record is we have to structure our lives in such a way that we get paid, because we must earn money to run our living, right? We get paid for the services that we give, and we get paid in human currency. But where the blessings come in is the things we do for which we are not paid.
I hear you. Yes.
And that's what I saw the record.
Yes, the things that are intangible. the love that you give and the kindness and the service that
and
you
the
give
time.
and the time.
And the time. You know, you go to work, you work for 8 hours, and at the end of that day, you know you will earn X amount of money for the day. Well, you have given your service and you have earned that money, whatever it is that you do for a living.
Right.
But it's up to us to structure our lives in such a way that we are giving a bit of ourselves, our time, even our prayers, so that we can be blessed.
Right. Yes, yes, yes.
So that was a biggie for me. But then I kept having questions. Like I kept asking the question, who taught me how to pray? Because what I saw there is that we're constantly asking God for this or that. But nobody in churches teaches us to be quiet, be still, and listen for the answers. So we were not taught meditation.
Exactly.
And so I was very adamant about, well, who taught me how to pray? They did not tell me that I needed to shut up, be quiet, and be still and wait for the answer.
Exactly.
This thing called meditation.
Exactly.
There was also, I had a baby that I carried. It was born, and it died 3 hours later, and I couldn't get over it. And we had to bury that baby. It was a boy. And that was one of those things that had saddened me, and I couldn't get over it up until then, okay?
Okay.
And then I saw in the record why that happened. That he and I had walked before, because up until then I'd never heard of previous lifetimes. Right. He and I had walked before in a lifetime before, and he was trying to teach me this lesson on love, and I couldn't get it. I didn't get it. And so he chose to design a lifetime at the last 3 hours, so that having spent 9 months inside of me, he would get sensitized to my energy. And then he would go back in spirit and become one of my guides. And from that place, he then guided me to an understanding of love.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. Because the reason I say that, you may not remember, my son is in spirit. He transitioned 5 years ago at the age of 29. And I knew at the moment of his transition, I was blessed to know this, knowing at the moment of his transition that it was a soul plan that he and I had. So and there's if people want to understand, there is a backstory to how I knew that at that time. But thank you for sharing that, because I do know that a lot of parents listen to my show. Matter of fact, my main audience might be parents that have children in spirit. So thank you so much for sharing. So,
and when I saw that, I gasped. I gasped. But then it was the first hint of lifetime. I went, lifetime? I didn't know anything about that. And as soon as I said that, the scrolling screen stopped. It like reconfigured itself. And when it started re-scrolling now, there were 6 other lifetimes scrolled into the one. And that answered phenomenal questions that I had been carrying for years. Wow. And I'm watching the scroll, and I'm watching how things that I did not get finished in a lifetime before, in this lifetime I was given the opportunity, but I blew it because I was too busy praying for the things I wanted.
Yes, happens to a lot of people.
So that was my first introduction to lifetimes. I watched myself in a lifetime way back when Moses was put into the basket, into the Nile.
Right.
And I was there. I watched that, and I watched it because it all had to do with teaching me this thing called divine love. Well, the screen eventually came to a halt, and I still have questions, and I'm thinking now again, how do I get around in this environment? And as soon as I think that, I find myself moving again. Only this time, I came to a river. Okay. When I was a child in Sunday school, we used to sing, "Yes, we will gather at the river." Right. The beautiful river.
Yes.
Well, there is a river. Well, it was for me. And on the other side of the river, my God, there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And the most amazing thing about me being on the one side of the river wasn't very wide.
Okay.
Me being on one side of the river, I could feel the love, this tremendous amount of love coming towards me from these people on the other side of the river. Now, there were about 5 or 6 people that I recognized from the lifetime I had just left, like my aunt. But most of the other faces I couldn't recognize, but they were obviously people who had lived with me in lifetimes and for whom there was love between us. And so I'm standing there and I can feel, I'm overwhelmed by this amazing amount of love that is being beamed at me. And then my aunt stepped into the river, and the river had moss. It was covered with moss, and she had a net. And she began to try to clear the net. And every now and again, she would look up at me, and I started to walk towards her. And before I got to the middle of the river, she stopped and she looked at me and she said, "I'm sorry, you're not going to be allowed to cross at this time." And I said, "Why?" And she says, "Because you have to go back and give them a message." And you will find this funny. I said to her, "There are millions of people back there. If you want to send a message, you can pick one of them. Why me? I'm already here."
Right.
She said, "No, you have to return." I said, "And what's the message?" "You need to go back and tell them that there is more to life than meets the eye."
Yes.
And no sooner she said that, I literally found myself falling. And guess what? In my falling, I was convinced I was falling back to hell.
Okay.
And you can't take that out of me. It's still there. During my studies since then, Spirit said to me, "You still have that question in your mind about earth being hell. Well, pay attention to the number of fires that are burning on earth. And it will help you to answer your question."
Right.
Now, that's a mouthful.
Yes.
I get back into the physical body now, and I am not a happy camper. I can't wait to see this doctor who wasted his time, as far as I was concerned, and brought me back from that beautiful, blissful place of light and love into pain, because now I'm back and I'm in pain in this hospital room.
Yes.
But I'm watching the nurses move around doing their task, and I realized that a whole paradigm shift had just taken place. I could see their aura. I could see their mental and their physical health, the condition of their physical health. I am amazed at the fact that some of them, I'm thinking, "Oh my God, they're dedicated to helping people heal, but they don't realize that they're sick and they need to be healed themselves."
Yes.
I was in ICU, but every time they opened the door, there was a nurse sitting outside the door, and she had a radio playing on classical music.
Okay.
And oh my God, I could see the notes. I could see the notes. Like when somebody would go through the door, open the door, I could see the notes coming into the room, and I could see that every note is tied to a color. Every color is tied to a number. Every number is tied to a mathematical symbol. And I am just like out of my mind. It's like, what in the world has happened here?
Yes.
They kept me in hospital for 9 days, and things would come out of my mouth that I didn't really want to say, but I couldn't help saying. Like, for example, the first time they took me out into the ward, so to speak, and because in those days you had 5, 6 people, and there was a woman in the room she could hear her groaning. You could hear her groaning. And the nurse came out at one time, and she's talking to another nurse and saying, we've given her the maximum amount of painkillers, but she's still groaning. And I said to her, "Oh, it's okay. She'll be home by tomorrow. She'll be home before the morning breaks."
Okay.
But what I meant was I knew she was going to die. Well, of course, she died before the morning break, and then the nurses came to me. "Well, did you mean that? Did you will that? How did you know that?"
Oh.
But see, I was so excited for her because she was going to the place I was longing to be at.
Right. Yes.
So a whole paradigm shift took place. The Monday, 2 nurses are talking, right?
Right.
Apparently, they both attend the same church, but one had to work on Sunday. So the other one, they're working at the table, and the other one is describing to her the sermon that was preached on the Sunday.
Right.
And it was a sermon that had to do with the devil. And I'm screaming that's not true. Where did your pastor get that?
Yes. Well, when you were talking about, you had this sense when you were falling, and of course, what we're taught in church. Of course, you're going to think, oh, I'm falling to hell. My belief there is no such thing as hell, and I don't think of earth as hell. It is a very, very challenging school.
It is a school, but the school is hell, believe you me.
Well, no, you know what?
When you have felt the joy, you felt the joy of the other side.
Yes, I understand.
You would really, really ask. When I came back, I really asked, was it necessary for us to do all this?
Yes, but what, like you said before, there is no such thing as death. All there is eternal life. And we literally, honestly, we choose to come to this school, this 3D dimension that is extremely difficult. I don't know if there's any other dimension more difficult than Earth. But
there are a lot of other dimensions, trust me, and they probably are more difficult. But the thing about it is, when you say to people, you choose to come. Let me give the example. You're taking me now back to the record.
Okay.
So I'm at the record, and one of the places at the record I see is the point at which the decision was made that I should return. I did not want to return. I did not want to come back to Earth. Right. And I watched several guides come and try to talk me, give me all the advantages. These are the experiences that you must have in order for you to grow and for you to move in. And I was not having it. Mm-hmm. And then it was very interesting. There was this male species guide, who came, and he took me to this room. And in this room, it had this very ornate chair. And I gasped at the beauty of the chair. Mm-hmm. And he said, that chair belongs to you, but you can't sit in it. You won't be allowed to sit in it until you have mastered 1, 2, 3, 4. And the only place you can master 1, 2, 3, 4 is back there on Earth. Mm-hmm. I said, but you don't understand how hard that is. That is very difficult. Why would I want to choose that? And interestingly enough, in the record, he said to me, I tell you what, I'll be there when you are at your hardest trials. Mm-hmm. I'll be there for you. So if you agree to return, I promise you I'll be there. Now, it seems like standing at the record, I understood that he didn't have a plan to return at the time he was speaking to me. So I said, if I'm ever going to listen to you, you'll have to be older than I am for me to be able to listen to you. Mm-hmm. And he says, don't worry about it. Now, do you know, I did not meet that person until I was 56.
Okay.
And we met under very interesting circumstances. Mm-hmm. I was really going through divorce and raising children, and life was really, really at a very, very bad place for me.
Yes.
And he showed up
as
the person who did my taxes.
Oh, okay. But I do hear what you're saying, but I also know that even like you had a beautiful near-death experience, and you were there, you were in the light, you were at home, you were in all of the joy, but your human mindset kind of was thinking, I don't want to go back to that place. But it's when I speak about we chose to come here, it's our spirit, our soul, our God self. I like using the term higher self. The reason I like using the term higher self because it reminds me that it's not separate from me. It is a part of me. It's the part of me that knows all my lifetimes.
It's God.
Yes, it's God. It's the part of me.
And incidentally, God is not a man.
Right, of course. Yeah,
it's not a man. It's
right.
A phenomenal vibrating force that we cannot begin to understand.
Exactly. Exactly. But that God self of me, that higher self, that part of me that knows all, that knows every lifetime I've lived, that knows exactly why I choose to come, my goals, my purpose, the things I want to accomplish as a soul. That's why we're here, because we're here to accomplish these things that we want to accomplish as a soul. So that's why I always, me personally, I always think from the spiritual perspective now, especially since my son transitioned. My entire mission and purpose here is to help inspire others to remember who we truly are as divine souls.
But also remember that some people in their plan,
Mm-hmm.
like this gentleman I'm talking about, he was a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
And when our lives interacted, like I said, he was the person who did my taxes. I just gotten divorced, didn't know anything about taxes, etc., etc., etc. And so he entered my life as like an advisor, a business advisor, and person who literally held my hand and taught me how to do business. So that I
Right.
started my very first business. But the interesting thing about him was, I remembered saying to his sister, I got to know his family, I got to know his sister. And I said to his sister, I said, you know, your brother doesn't have a single spiritual bone in his body. All he ever thinks about is money, 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 business, money, 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 money.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, I discovered that was his disguise.
I see.
That was, and I told him, I said, that was happened to be the most perfect disguise I have ever seen anyone put in place. Because when the time was right, he was the person who helped me get back to the other side
Mm-hmm.
4 times while I was fully conscious.
Okay.
But his disguise was of such in the world that there's no way you could have looked at him and said, he even. I actually said to him, I said, do you even have a spiritual bone in your body? But the thing that I am trying to teach the world now is the learning curve it took. You see, because after I came back from the near-death experience, I became suicidal. I was very depressed and suicidal. Planned 3 suicide attempts and failed in all 3. Now I'm not only suicidal, but I'm feeling I'm a failure. I'm taking my own life.
Let me confess, I have had at least 3, yes, 3 suicide attempts, and the last one I share in detail is 2.5 years before my son transitioned, when doctors said he wasn't going to make it, and he did. It was a true medical miracle, but I yes. So, and I believe in every fiber of my being that if it's not your time, it's not your time.
Oh, no, you don't go with your time. But I think when they said it to me, you know, after the third time, I planned this thing so meticulous and it didn't work out. And the voice in my head said, now, you know, if somehow you manage to get to the other side, we'll send you back.
Yeah. When I believe so strongly, and I share this with parents that have children in spirit, that everything happens in perfect divine
Perfect
timing.
timing.
And if
Perfect
it's
divine
not your time, you're gonna get kicked back out. You could
get right, kick right back out, and oh God, you can imagine.
So it doesn't pay to try to commit suicide. You know,
No. I mean, then I sat down and I go, okay, now then, that's not a good idea. Forget that. It's not going to work. And then I became obsessed. Well, I know that this place is real. I have experienced it. I have felt the love. I felt the joy. I need to go back, even if it's just for 1 hour or 1 day. And that started a phenomenal journey.
Okay.
A learning curve that took 2 decades of my life. 3 continents, 7 spiritual teachers, and a whole change of my entire life pattern. Became a total vegetarian. It's been now 46 years. Took flesh out of the diet. Began to do serious meditation, yoga, stretching. Began to read very seriously on spiritual matters,
Mm-hmm.
and God sent the teachers
Yes.
that completely transformed the life to where it is now.
Yes.
Now, where did it lead to? Because of course, the one thing I couldn't remember, the one detail I couldn't remember of my near-death experience when I came back, I knew that I had been told what my purpose was,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't remember it.
Okay.
And it really, really bothered me. But now I understand why I couldn't remember it, because when it was time for it to be fulfilled, it was
Yes.
shown to me in a dream, in a meditation. I
Okay.
entered this prison. I saw myself going into prison. I saw myself coming out. And I remember when I came out of the meditation, I thought, oh my God, am I going to get locked up?
Mm.
But then the thought hit me that I had gone into the entrance of the prison and I came out in the same clothes I went in.
Mm.
So
Okay.
it dawned on me, wait a minute, you may have gone there for some kind of purpose. Well, it turned out that my purpose was bringing light into darkness with prisoners. And so I've just retired from 27 years as a prison chaplain,
Oh.
and work very, very closely from youth programs to death row
Mm-hmm.
with prisoners who are now, many of them ex-prisoners, and have turned their lives around. So it led me, the whole journey led me to finding my purpose. But I have to tell you, when I discovered what the purpose was, again, I was not a happy camper.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So that, in a nutshell, is the story of my life. And at the age of well over 70, I have just finished writing a book called Awakening.
I love the title of your book. Can you tell us? I can't wait till it's on, so I can get my hands on it. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Awakening will be out in the spring.
Okay.
And of course, I'll send out notices. But Awakening started off first with someone suggesting that my story was so deep that they should make a movie of it. And so
Yes.
we started out first writing the projection of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then it dawned on them, but wait a minute, in order to really portray who you are today, we need to get detailed information of, how you started life, etc.
Yes.
And so when I started to write Awakening, I was convinced, I'm sure you've heard this, to tell God what you're going to do, and he really has a party laughing at you. Because
Yes.
what you want to do or what he wants to do may not resemble each other.
Mm-hmm.
I started off writing Awakening and thinking that I'm going to stay away from the Christianity piece, and I'll just write a very spiritual dissertation.
Yes.
About the journey, the spiritual journey that I encountered, and the people that came along as teachers. The most profound teachers I've had were a pair of a husband and wife. He was 90, she was 87. Lord, God Almighty. They taught me so much about spirit, the spiritual realm, and living in a sacred and spiritual way.
Right.
So I wanted to keep it very spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I started writing it, now that I've actually just finished the manuscript, now that I've finished the manuscript, it is very clear the manuscript starts with my birth,
Mm-hmm.
and it follows those traces. I came into a family where both grandfathers were pastors.
Okay.
And so you can imagine we spent most of our life in church. I think
Yes.
Friday night and Saturday night were the only 2 nights we were not in church.
Mm-hmm.
So I came up with this heavy Christian background. But by the time I was 8 or 9, when you hear 2 sermons on every Sunday,
Right. Yes. Yes.
I had a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother had said to me to stop asking pastor questions because it's becoming embarrassing. Some of them you can't answer.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to write them down. I did not know that I was journaling.
Right.
But I started to write them down and accumulated 3 notebooks full of questions.
Okay.
And there were questions that came from the Bible and things that didn't kind of like, where did these women come from that married Adam and Eve's sons?
Right.
Things like that.
Right.
I wrote them all down. And in the journey, on the spiritual journey now, it seemed like since those questions were so strong in my mind, they had to be answered.
Okay.
Before I could move to the next level.
Right.
See what I mean?
Yes.
And it's like experiences and people came into my life to answer those questions. And then once those questions were answered and they were moved aside,
Yes.
then I was able to open up to the whole spiritual, the realm of being spiritual, and to serious meditation. In so many ways, I find that for me, I don't know if it's the same for every human being. I cannot say it's the same for every human being. But for me, those questions that I had were kind of like in the way and held me back from going the spiritual way until I got answers to them.
I understand, and I speak about it a lot, that we're unique aspects of the divine, that each of our journeys are going to be different, in the sense that, I mean, my family I was born into was not very religious, but they did send me to Catholic school, and at a very young age, I'm 4 or 5 years old, I'm thinking, the dogma of Catholicism did not resonate inside my soul at 5 years old. And I had questions. I had tons of questions, but my father said, a child is to be seen and not heard. So I could not vocalize. I could not ask these questions. And so as I grew up, there was a burning desire to get answers to these questions. And I knew within myself there was one missing piece. And the missing piece for me was understanding oneness. And it was science, it was quantum physics, even though I was reading spirituality, metaphysics books off and on for 30 years. When I watched a documentary about quantum physics, that tied everything together for me. That understanding the universal truth of oneness is what answered all my questions.
And that is the feeling I got when I was standing. I'm glad you mentioned that. When I was standing on the other side. It's like you're so connected to the earth. Your earth is behind you, but you still feel the connection. You're so connected to everything. There were trees, and the trees had purple leaves. I remember that. And I marveled at the fact that they had purple leaves. You never see trees with purple leaves on planet Earth. But the trees had purple leaves, but you were connected. It's like you were connected to every vein in every leaf. You were, when I saw the people on the other side, there was a total oneness. It wasn't like looking at 300 people. It was like being a part of a body of people.
Yes.
And this togetherness and this oneness. And this is what we need to be striving for.
Yes. I believe that is the solution, the oneness, the unity consciousness. And I believe that's what humanity is awakening, because we've been living in separation consciousness for eons. And so now it's time for humanity as a species, as a whole, to awaken to the fact that we're connected to each other, we're connected to the earth, we're connected to the trees, we're connected to the animals, the plants, everything. And when we truly know that in our heart, that we are connected, not only will it bring peace on earth, it'll put it into poverty, it would put it into war, crime. All our problems will be solved with that understanding. Wait a second, if I hurt another person, I'm only hurting myself.
That's right.
Yes.
And but the good news for me, and the book Awakening speaks to this.
Okay.
I don't speak to it by saying, well, here, this is what I think it would be. I just share my story, and just one little episode. That young lady I told you happened to be in the elevator with me.
Yes.
She was Hindu. She continued to be a part of my family right up until we left London.
Oh, wonderful.
She never changed her Hinduism, and I never changed my Christianity, and we never argued about religion.
Of course.
The British are very conservative people.
Yes.
They don't even talk to each other, okay? So you can't get angry and upset if you're an immigrant and don't talk to you.
Right. Right,
But
right.
I remember the day when I got into a medical emergency and the ambulance showed up at my door, and none of these people spoke to us. We were the
Mm-hmm.
first black people on the street. They didn't speak to us.
Right.
The ambulance showed up, and the police officer is saying, I'm saying to the police officer, I can't leave until my husband gets home
Right.
because I have nobody to take care of my child.
Children, right.
And those women came out of their doorway.
Mm-hmm.
And because the police officer was saying, well, we'll get a woman police to take care of him until his father gets home. And they came out of their doorway. And I ended up being hospitalized for 4 months. And they ran my house.
Oh, my goodness.
When I came home, I looked at them and I said, I hope you all don't expect that I'm going to be able to upkeep this home the way you've done it, because there were 7 of you and there's only 1 of me.
Right, right, right.
We became a family.
Yes.
A family got created away from home because we had no family in England.
Right. Yes.
And I had connected with some others. So my ex-husband had gone to England for an education.
Okay.
But we ended up with a very unique surrogate family that included blue-eyed, blonde-haired people,
Yes.
Indian people, Caribbean people.
Yes. Yes.
And a oneness. I mean, we loved each other. We shared ideas. We helped each other. We helped to raise each other's kids. And it was just an example of what can really happen in the world.
Yes.
But you notice it had to be almost tragedy that brought us together.
Yes. But that is so true. That is so true. I have respect for all religions. I myself don't claim to be any one religion, because if I were going to put a name to what I believe, it's unconditional love. That is just love for another. And it doesn't matter what a person, if they're Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, Islam, all religions, I have utmost respect for. And I believe at the core of all major religions is love. Unconditional love.
Yes, unconditional love.
Yes.
But this has been a wonderful experience. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, thank you so much. Please share with our listeners how they can find you, your website. This show will be airing on the 17th of January. So we will share those links with everybody, with all our on social media. But please share with our listeners how they can find you, and anything you can share about when your book is coming out and where's the best place, Amazon, where's the best place to find your book when it's out?
Oh, you're asking for a lot of information. Well, first of all, you can reach me on my website. I am a life coach. I'm a certified NLP life coach.
Yes.
And I do substance abuse intervention as well.
Yes.
And you can find me on Reprogram Your Life, as if it's one word.
Okay.
ReprogramYourLife.org.
Yes.
That's my website.
Yes.
My email address, reprogramyourlife@yahoo.com.
Okay.
And I've got a class coming up for the dawning of the new millennium. It starts on February the 18th, and it will run for 3 sessions.
Okay.
The 18th, the 25th, and the 3rd of March. And it is called Bridging the Gap.
Ah, I like that. I like that.
Attunement for the 21st century.
Awesome. So now, if they go to your website, will they also find the information on this class?
They'll find the information on this class. They can send me an email if they need further information. And the book Awakening, we are the target is to have it released by Easter.
Okay.
In the spring.
Yes.
And as soon as they have the date for that, I will send it. Right now we're going into editing, etc.
Right.
I will have that information on my website.
Awesome.
But I promise that it is a treatise that I not only enjoyed writing, but that it forced me to take a very serious backward look in my life
Mm-hmm.
and to do some processing, some analyzing. There were times when I laughed. It produced hilarious laughter. And there were some times where, I remembered some of the trials
Yes.
and the tribulations.
Mm-hmm.
And it speaks very much about the sacredness that has been implanted in me since my near-death experience.
Yes.
And it also speaks of practical spirituality.
Mm.
We can read the theory, we can read the
Yes.
concepts, but how do you live it on an everyday basis is what that couple, 90, he 90 and she 87, that
Yes.
is what they taught me. You have to get practical. This is
Yes.
the practical way in which you live it. And all of that information I tried to put into Awakening.
Awesome. Very good. Very good. One of my favorite quotes from the Bible is count it all joy when you were talking about the laughter and the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And count
Yes.
it all joy.
All joy. Yes.
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 My
Yes.
favorite one is be still
Mm.
and know
I am God.
that I am God. And of course, God, I keep saying it, God is not a man, he's a phenomenal field of energy.
Yes.
But
Yes.
here on earth, we like to put things into man, Roman sequences.
Right. We like to label.
And we like names, yes.
Yeah, we like to name things and to label things. But God, for me, the term God is all that is. And when I write God, I put / all that is, meaning there is nothing outside of God. It's all God.
It's all universal. If
Yes.
some people choose to use the term universal, that's fine.
Yes.
Some people choose the term higher self, that's fine.
Yes.
Even if you want to call it a rock, it's fine with me.
It is, yeah.
The point is, it is what it is, and regardless of what labels we choose to put it under, it's not going to change the divine essence.
Exactly. This is so true. This
Yes.
is so true.
The divine essence is what it is, and it is what it is, and always will be.
Yes. Very
I
true.
want to say it was such a joy meeting you.
Thank you. This is such a joy, such a pleasure. And I know that we will stay in touch and we will get together again, especially in the spring. See, I live in the Poconos and it's really snow on the ground, it's cold.
Ooh.
But when the weather gets warm, we'll definitely run into each other at a conference.
Yes, and I plan to be at the IANDS Conference
2020
this year.
Yes,
in 2020,
and I also
I'll be presenting again.
Yes, I'm hoping to be presenting. I'm not. I just am putting in my proposal now, so I'm hoping to. I actually was invited to present by the former president a few months ago, but there's a new president. So,
there's a new president now.
Yes, there's a new president, so we'll see how that goes. But I will be there, so we'll see each other there again. Well, thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation to share with the world, and your experience is so awesome, and it speaks to the truth. It speaks to the universal truth of oneness, because
oneness, yes. They're all one. The animals, when the animals die, we need to weep too. We're connected. We're all of the energies of life are connected.
Yes.
And the sooner we know that and we understand that, I think is the sooner we will get to that peaceful place that we long so much for.
Very true. Very true.
I also want to say that, if people want to perhaps listen to some of my thoughts, they can go up on Voice America. Okay. I had a 3-year program on there called Spirituality 101, and I think they still carry the episodes. Even
Voice America. Okay.
Voice America.
Okay.
And, it's called Spirituality 101, and there's 3 years of beautiful conversations. It allowed me to interview some amazing people that have done some amazing things and are sharing amazing experiences with the world.
Awesome.
And together, we'll get there.
Yeah, we are. We have to get there together because we're one. So we will get there.
There is hope.
Yes.
There is hope eternal. And
Yes.
that's the message that I would like to leave with your
Yes.
listeners. There is hope.
Yes, very true. Thank you so much, Reverend Norma. I appreciate you being my guest. I have so much love for you, and we are going to stay in touch. I might just get in my car and drive down and knock on your door for a visit.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Yes.
And may God expand your territory in
Thank you.
2020 so
And
that your
also,
listening audience and that you say and feel and give out to the world will be felt by thousands.
thank you.
That is my prayer for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Love you so much. Happy 2020 to everyone. And we'll be seeing you and keeping in touch. Much love. Namaste.
Peace.